Hello and welcome. I'm Eloise Hall, Strategic Relationship Director at e.surv and proud representative of the mortgage industry mental health charter. Today on International Women's Day, we are doing something a little bit different. We are launching a first podcast focusing on women's mental health and wellbeing. This will run alongside MIMHC Keep the Conversation Going podcast as a companion, not a comparison. We aren't here today to say that mental health concerns are gendered or siloed. In fact, we are just making sure that there is opportunity to explore deeper female wellbeing and mental health in our industry. We'll be sharing our vulnerabilities, our strengths, all within this podcast. Women in our industry can carry huge loads. We can be the ones connecting families together. We can also be the ones running businesses, all whilst navigating mental health or health realities in private. I'm joined today by two incredible women in our industry, Nicola Firth, founder and CEO of Knowledge Bank, and Kath Stagg, founder and owner of Stagg Mortgages. You two are both industry legends, so I'm sure you don't need an introduction, but for anyone that hasn't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, do you want to just give a bit of an introduction to yourselves now?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Kath Stagg. I'm founder and director of Stagg Mortgage Services. I've been in the industry around 20 years and just sort of trying to help other people navigate the way through the mortgage and protection world.
Amazing. Thank you, Kath. Nicola.
I'm Nicola Firth, the founder and chief executive of Knowledge Bank. Again, been in the industry about 20 years. First as a broker, so I've had that experience, and then more latterly at Knowledge Bank. So I found a signatory of the Mortgage Industry Mental Health Charter. I'm passionate about what we're going to talk about today.
Thank you very much, both. A pleasure to have you here today. We've got some fantastic questions, and to set the scene for this podcast today is really about being able to bring to life some of the hidden things that many women in our industry are going through. Is there something that you can kind of bring to life for us that reminds you about why these conversations are so important within our sector? Is that something I can come to you first, Nicola?
Yeah, definitely. I think you summed it up really well in your introduction there, Eloise, that, as women, we're dealing with different things. It's not worse, it's not better, it's different, isn't it? And sometimes those things are hidden. We carry a lot of weight around mental health, physical health as well for women. And the work that we do, women do see things from a different perspective, and that's why women in the workplace, and especially at a high level, is great, brings different perspectives, but it also brings different challenges as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliantly put, Nicola. Thank you. And I suppose that's why things like the Mortgage Industry Mental Health Charter being in place is so important.
Absolutely.
And was there a reason why you kind of drew it into the Mortgage Industry Mental Health Charter and wanted to start supporting the kind of work that they do, Kath?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, when I set up on my own, I got more into the Mortgage Industry Mental Health Charter. And I think it's so important to have that sort of somebody to sort of rely on going forward, but also it's for the clients. So recently I had a client in and she broke down halfway through the appointment just because of life stresses, out things at home and certain things getting on top of her. And it's not just about buying a house or doing protection, it's just trying to sort of make sure that client's well-being is right as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I'm so passionate about it, and I just really, really want to help not just colleagues and staff, I do want to help everybody who I can, just to make sure that they know what's going on, and if we can help them with mental health, we can continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose building on that, there's quite a lot of emotional load, like you say. There's we're dealing with clients' biggest life purchases and biggest decisions, and there's a lot of stress that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that emotional load that we're bearing, as well as for teams or our families. It's kind of bring to life a little bit for us around kind of how you navigate that, how you can manage and carrying that weight.
Yeah, definitely. It's just hard because the woman is always the one who sort of, you've got your house, you've got your children, you've got everything going on, you've got sort of to sort money, and it sometimes, and as well as being a sort of that client, you've also got the broker side of it and the director side of it, where so you take on the burden of getting the mortgage offer sorted and everything else. So if you've got somebody just so you can pick the phone up, or you've got a resource to say, how would I cope with this?
Yeah.
Then, that'd be absolutely, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
so,
thank
really
you for
good.
that, Kath. And I suppose, Nicola, navigating that emotional load and kind of all the different things that formulate part of the mortgage process, but then in the day-to-day life for a woman in our industry, how do you kind of navigate that in amongst hormonal cycles and amongst everything else that's all-encompassing from a day-to-day perspective?
I'd probably say for most women with great difficulty.
But absolutely.
Those difficulties are just, they're hidden. That's the thing, they're hidden. So, and I don't mind sharing from my perspective, my cycle has had a massive, massive impact on my work. So for obviously things like estrogen levels that rise hormones and things like that, which you have no control of at all. And so for 3 days out of every month, and this went on for years, I had terrible headaches and migraines and brain fog. So 3 days out of every month where I will be trying to plan my diary around that. Okay, don't book important meetings or make important decisions around that time. And that's ridiculous, 3 months out of every month. But when you add that up, that's a month out of every year, and that's not counting any other illness that you may have if you picked a bug up or something like, that's a whole month out of every year that you're trying to navigate just because of your cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because of that, And that's before we talked about the physical things, like whether it be cramps or things like that, the other things that affect women. So for me, that's been a real challenge, and that went on for years and years and years. And, when I say went on, it's not something that you think, oh, well, I'll just put up with it. This is going to the doctor, a doctor's appointments. This is try these tablets. Months passed, no, they didn't work. Let's try these ones. And, that the despondency then when things don't work and they're saying to you, well, if these don't work, there's nothing we can do. And you think, hang on a minute, what year are we in?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the challenge. So certainly for me, I understand because I've had those challenges and still do to some extent, and you have to just go on. I've been out to see clients when I was a broker and had to pull the car over and actually vomit. It's awful, but I felt so sick. I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get home. I feel so ill. I managed to get through the client appointment and then just have to go home to bed. And all of these things that people just don't realise that you are dealing with as a woman. And that's my story, but it's not unique. It's not unique at all. You can speak to any woman and there'll be something similar that they're dealing with.
Thank you. Absolutely. It's that kind of expectation that it's BAU though for anyone else that doesn't have those insights and they're seeing you blocking out those 3 days and reorganising meetings around that and thinking, oh, well, are you on holiday? You're having a nice time on that? Really understanding absolutely the background behind it. Thank you. So you raised some really good points around invisible symptoms there, Nicola, so thank you for sharing that. As probably some of the other invisible symptoms can be very emotional, can be talking about feeling over capacity and a bit overwhelmed. Is that something you can kind of bring to life for us, Kath?
Yeah, so sometimes I feel like the emotional overload is, so women become the emotional anchor for everyone. Husbands, children, sort of parents, colleagues, family. So for me, I try and do it where I don't sort of get more absorbed with people anxiety. So I try and be the steady one and the fixer who holds the room together. So I just try and make it as easy and streamlined as possible. Obviously your hormones are all over with your monthly cycle and things like that. So I just try and not get as much, because obviously you've got your energy, your sleeping, your anxiety focus. So I just try and sort of focus on one thing at a time in little bits to make it easier.
Yeah, I think that's a top tip that a lot of people can take some benefit from, absolutely. We were discussing earlier around how we can be doing a really good job getting some good kind of feedback from a client or a customer or a colleague. And then when we look back to the inbox, there's 50 kind of messages that have just come through, and it's balancing of how we kind of make sure we still do keep being productive and have good time of that energy, but there's always only so much you can do in a day.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's where in the world, in the way our industry works, is it's like you don't see you having broken sleep and, the migraines like you had and the anxiety and the spikes and emotional wings. But so you try and sort of, at the end of the day, sort of keep it together. Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about. Yeah. Try not to get overwhelmed as well. So I wear my heart on my sleeve, as many people in this industry know. So I try not to get sort of hit by the deadlines as much, and family needs and team pressures. I sort of try and ground myself to say, let's just do one day at a time.
Yeah.
And then in the long run, the days add up and the positives come. So
Absolutely. Good. Well shared. Thank you, Kath. And is there something that you would want to share that kind of you would think you would expect men to already know or wish men did know, and how that could help us navigate our industry a little bit better? Shall I come to you first, Nicola?
Yeah, I think, obviously we're talking around women's mental health, and hormones play a massive, massive part of that. And I think we know that as women.
Yeah.
You can't underestimate that, but also I can't expect that men would understand that.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean that in any kind of patronising way, because if somebody said you're going to wake up, you're going to have absolutely no control of how you feel that day. There's all these, you can listen to podcasts, you control how you feel, you control. Yeah. Yes, to a point. You control how you think, but you can't control how you feel. And hormones play such a big part of that. And I think for men who don't suffer with those fluctuations, it's difficult to even comprehend that. The fact that you can feel upset, you don't even know why you're upset, but you can feel upset. You can feel annoyed and angry, and just like you're having a bad day, but you can't even remember why. And that, it sounds almost unhinged, doesn't it? We can laugh about it, but it is true. You can have one of those days and you have got no control over it. There's nothing you can take to make it better. It's just hormones. And I think it's very, very difficult for men to understand that. And it's because it's difficult for us to understand it. Even we don't understand it, but it's happening in our bodies. And I think if there was anything that I would say to men, just try and, don't try and understand, but try and see that, I think, because I think
questions.
Ask questions. Absolutely. How are you feeling today? Is everything okay? And, it might just be because somebody's really actually is having a bad day, but it might just be because somebody's just not feeling it that day. And it's that, something's, it's hormonal, they can't control it. And I think, there's a sort of a thought, isn't there, that, men are assertive and women are bossy and hysterical and emotional and all of these things, that bad rap that women have got over the years that then translates into the workplace. And I've experienced it. I can go back several years ago now when I first started in the industry, and because I spoke up at a meeting about something that I didn't feel was right and others didn't. I was accused by the male boss of having a hissy fit. Those kind of things. It's like that kind of language is not really helpful. Absolutely. And that was nothing to do with my cycle. It was something to do with the culture at work.
A valid point, I imagine.
A valid point. But I think, overall, I think if men could understand anything, it's the fact that women's hormones fluctuate. They affect behaviour, they affect decisions, they affect outcomes, and, it's difficult to understand, but try.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's very good advice. And Kath, anything to add?
I think prime example is I've literally just started the world of menopause. So it's a new massive thing to me. And I got home and said to my husband, I've started menopause. He's like, what do we need to do? Oh. I'm like, well, is anything going to change? That was his first impression of, right, what do we need to do? And is anything going to change? And I said, well, to be honest, I'm not going to try and not be as angry and shouty. Try and keep my hormones, as you know. And then obviously you start taking your HRT and things like that. And you come into a bit of a cycle where you start to not be as emotional, your brain fog goes. And it's just a case of sort of having that support. Like not just from my husband, but like my family and sort of work colleagues. Some days you're going to be a little bit, and then other days you're going to be a bit, and you've just got to get that balance in your own head.
Because I think there's a lot to learn from that, both from the male perspective as well, kind of being supportive, understanding that, but both from my perspective, this is something I'll have to look forward to in my lifetime, I've no doubt. So hearing other women talking about that for me to learn and understand is
I was just going to say the same. The fact that you're able to have that conversation, not only with your husband, but I think as well, being able to have that conversation openly at work and there being no shame attached to it, no embarrassment attached to it, and just being able to have those open conversations that I might be feeling different because of this. I'm going to be on this medication that might have this side effect, and being able to have that, and then at least you feel supported. So that's something else from a male perspective, and that's not just menopause, but right through, being able to be open and have conversations where you're struggling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose we've kind of deep dived into menopause a little bit there, but one of the other things we were going to discuss today is also around fertility. Can you talk a little bit about that journey? Who would like to go first?
Yeah, I don't mind. Certainly, I don't mind being really open and honest, because I think unless we start having these open and honest conversations, then we don't get anywhere, do we? I think that's the thing. Certainly, we've not got children. Myself and my husband, we had 2 failed cycles of IVF, so it wasn't out of choice. And that is for anybody who's been through that will know the absolute roller coaster that is. And that's one thing. But then trying to continue to work through that as well, and I don't just mean the appointments, because that's a massive thing as well. But the appointments, then what that does, I always remember finding out that that one of the cycles had not worked, and being really upset about it, and just having to then put some makeup on and go out and see a client because I've got a mortgage appointment to do.
Yeah.
You can't, what can you do? And I knew on that day I was going to find out, but that mortgage needed doing because they were moving house, that the product was going to get pulled. I knew, we were in those times.
And you don't stop there, do you?
Stop.
And now, it's heartbreaking, and you've got to then go, and like you're right, you've just got to put this face on that you don't really want to talk to somebody, and you don't really want to sort of be in that moment at that precise minute. You're more than happy to help any clients at any time, but it's exactly the same. You just don't want to be there at that point. You just sort of want to be at home and with, and we do things like this always, and it's so brave to come out and say, and there will be many women who suffer from that. I mean, I'm very, very lucky. I've got 2 daughters who, I didn't have a problem, but then I always think you want the other people to have the babies too. Do you know what I mean? It's heartbreaking at times, but more people say, this is how it is, and it helps rather than being in a sort of somebody just suffering on their own. You're helping somebody to say, oh, actually, I feel like this, and what could I do? And
the more people that have opened up about it, the more common you realise that it is actually that everyone has their own journey into what that looks like. So there is a lot to navigate in that space.
And I think sometimes people are ready to talk about it. I mean, for me, this is I guess more than 10 years ago now, but for the people, it's raw. They're not ready. They may be in it. They don't want to have that conversation. And I think conversations around, oh, when are you having kids, that kind of thing, that's just not helpful. Or even when are you having another, those things are just not for people, because they've had one doesn't mean to say that the next one's going to be plain sailing. So there are conversations that you can delicately navigate around, I think, when you are speaking with people, because it does, more and more people these days do seem to find that there are problems, and sometimes as in our case, completely unexplained. So there's no reason, it just wasn't meant to be. So,
and also it's harder when sort of at the time, obviously you sort of have your children round your friends, and sort of everyone say, and not in an awful way, oh, I'm having a baby, and you think, well, you want to be that person, even though you're so happy, and you feel that you just want to be that person, and it's just so hard.
And do you know what though? I think having been in that position, and I always remember a friend of mine, she's telling me that she's pulling a scan photo out, and I'm thinking, oh, please be a picture of a cat, or something. And it wasn't. It was a baby scan. And I think what we have to really understand is that, I can be happy for you, but sad for me at the same time. Absolutely. And those two things can coexist together. Definitely. And that's okay. That is okay to feel both of those things. It really is.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicola. So, Nicola, let me ask you, what do you think that women uniquely bring to our industry that deserves a bit more recognition?
So I think what women bring into the workplace, and obviously how that then translates into our industry, I think women are really compassionate. I mean, not to go down any stereotypes, but women do often take the primary caring roles and things like that. Of course, this will differ, from family to family and all of that. But I think women do bring a different perspective, and sometimes a softer side. So I think, and I think back to myself as a broker, Kath, you mentioned it earlier, getting, the involvement that you have with clients and the way that you see things and that emotional attachment to cases. And I think it's a good and a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It is a good and a bad thing because, of course, mortgages, specifically looking at our industry, mortgages, it's very emotive, isn't it? Moving house is one of the biggest things, the most stressful things that you can do. And of course, being able to meet that head on with compassion for your client is a really wonderful thing. However, that comes at a cost emotionally to you then as a person. So I do think it's a really lovely thing that women bring. And I think, different dynamics to the workplace as well. I mean, I've seen it in the boardroom, and I've been in meetings where it's all been men and just me, and meetings where, you're sat there with other women, and there is a very different dynamic. And I think sometimes, perhaps things that might escalate, don't escalate, and all of that. I think it's a really interesting dynamic, and which is why, I'm a big advocate for women, going right to the top, because, well, number one, that's where they should be. And also the fact that it does bring a really, really different dynamic to a workplace. At Knowledge Bank, where I am, we actually have more women than men. It's purely by accident, but there's such a different dynamic. It really is, and different, especially for a fintech company as well. Yes. It is a really, really different dynamic, and it's a lovely one as well. And the men embrace that. It's unusual for them, but it's just how it is.
Which is good, really good. Absolutely. I like that.
And nobody wants to work in an echo chamber where, well, I mean, maybe some people do, but it's very much you want to be able to be thinking about different perspectives. And absolutely, when I'm hiring, it's looking at who the right person is for the job, and absolutely making sure, do they do exactly the same thing that I'm going to be doing, or are they bringing something different? And that's absolutely it. You want that diversity and unique voices.
Absolutely.
Oh, brilliant. And Kath, tell me a little bit around, we've talked today about sisterhood and women, and it being kind of really empowering to have that support systems in place. Can you tell me a time that another woman has lifted you up?
Yeah, so recently another woman in the industry actually reached out to me a few weeks ago, out of the blue, LinkedIn message, and just to say how much she admired me and what I do. So what Stagg Mortgage has achieved, what my team has achieved. And it meant more at that point. When I got that message, it meant more that she'll ever know. Yeah. She was just being kind. She was just, just probably going about a day and thought, I'll send a message. But that message made me feel so much, at the time, so much rewarding. Absolutely. And it was so nice to see that, it doesn't sort of go unnoticed when you sort of help people. And, I try to do my best and try to be kind and make sure we help everybody in this industry, because you've got all different walks of life and you've got all people. And if you just help, if that message, even just one message one day, it just lifts your moves for the rest of the week. Yeah.
It goes back to thinking about what we were discussing earlier about having the mask and people just needing to power through, get through the day. You never really know what people are going on the inside, and absolutely those small gestures can make a huge difference. And
recently I went to London, and I don't know if you've seen it, it must be like an Instagram thing where they write chalk on the pavement. Oh, right, okay. And it's like a really good motto of the day. I've seen it a few times now when I've been in London, and I've took pictures of them because I think, oh my God, that is so nice. Just that one little message on that pavement makes it so rest of your day you think, it's actually, even if it's raining or you can't get to where you're going to, you look at that message and think, that's good for me. Yeah.
I think that's it. Words make such a difference.
Yeah, words make such a difference.
You don't know the difference that you can make to somebody's day just by using those words.
And I think it's nice, the creation that we're making, this industry of women helping other women.
Yes.
And it's just so nice to see everybody's so supportive, and they want to see you succeed. And the conference, me and Nicola go to quite a few conferences together, and it's lovely to see, not in the room, it's just male, because obviously our industry has been predominantly in the past sort of 20 years, definitely when me and Nicola first started, all male oriented, and now you get the women making the noise and stepping up, and it's good, really good.
Do you know what, I was only reflecting on that last night, thinking about doing this today, and I was thinking about just the women in our industry and how nice they are. And the people so these are not people that I'm friends with outside of work, we're not social, but do you know what, people that I actually think there are people in our industry, I don't think I know, I could ring up and say, I'm having a bad day. And that is worth so much. I don't do it, but I could.
Yeah.
And knowing that you could is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's just knowing that there are other lifelines there, and there are some absolutely amazing women in our industry, both to look up to emulate, to admire, but also that you can just reach out to. And I think there's just a really nice kinship, I think, within our industry, and that hopefully, you know, with what we're doing with the mortgage industry mental health charter, and certainly, you know, what we're working on today and the series that we're going to be doing, and that's just going to absolutely widen that, because what we've been in the industry for quite a few years, but there'll be so many younger women that are coming into the industry, and we want them to feel that, them to know that, and that they're not on their own, and that there is a network that they can reach out
Definitely,
to.
100%.
Absolutely. When I think about kind of my career, I feel very lucky that throughout many stages, there's been females that I can look up to and go, oh, I love where you've got to, or I can learn this from you, and, you know, invited into spaces where that can be prioritised and looked after. So absolutely, thank you. Our next section is around what needs to change. So we've highlighted already some of the complications, brought those to life, highlighted some of the things that we love about the sector, and absolutely the sisterhood that exists within it. But for all of us in the industry, what one change would you make that you think would make women's lives a bit easier? Shall I come to you first on that?
Yeah, I think the big one for me is sort of flexibility. So regardless sort of if obviously, so if you've got flexibility in your workplace, I mean, I let my staff sort of work the hours within the parameters of, some of them want to do 7 till 3, some of them like 8 till 4, some of them even like 10 till 6. So I always try, well, when possible, to accommodate those work patterns. So you are flexible, not so much like working mums. You've got people that like to go to the gym, so they like to go to the gym a bit earlier, and, you know, and then the other side of it is they sort of like to stay at home maybe a bit longer, or they've got pets and things like that. So trying to sort of be flexible instead of being stuck in a regime where it's 9 to 5 and this is it. We'll start at 9, we'll finish. It doesn't work like that. No. So just trying to get that there, and more compassion.
Yeah,
that's a massive thing. Yeah, human approach is to me. If you're kind, you've got a human approach, you know, that's where people love you for you. So I think that's a big thing.
No, brilliant. Thank you.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that the flexibility is a massive thing. But the other thing I would say is the openness to have conversations and say those words. Say those words. You know, let's have, you know, 2 male managers saying, she's not in today because she's having problems. It's a period. Say the word.
Absolutely.
It's fine, you know, and let's that be the change. Let's say menopause. Let's say period. Let's not shy away from those things, because imagine if we were in a world where nobody was embarrassed by those things and nobody felt they couldn't say them, or felt. Do you know the one phrase I want to get away from? Women's problem.
Oh gosh.
And saying it in that way as well.
I was just thinking
exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, like your nan might say something. Right, let's just move away from women's problems. Let's call it for what it is, because women's problems start from your teens and they go right up to, well, goodness knows when. They don't stop. They change. They're all women's problems, but they change. What you need changes.
How people react say men's problems either, do you?
No, exactly.
A man having a day off. Oh, the men's problems. Nobody says that. It's always
exactly.
You know,
and it's said as though it's something that needs to be swept under the carpet, and that is the point that I'm making. If you're saying to me, what's the one change? Let's not sweep it under the carpet. Let's say the words. Let's say it for what it is, and let's make that difference. Because as soon as a bit like mental health,
absolutely, you know, the taboo around it.
Roll that back 10 years, we could not talk about mental health because it was, you know, it's the crazy, it's this, it's that. It was seen as something to talk about, you know, behind closed doors. It's not, you know. And when you think 50% of us are women. 50% of the workforce, 50% of the population. This is not a minority thing. This is life.
And it's everyday life, part of every female's lexicon that they use on a daily basis or monthly basis at least.
Absolutely. And the women you're working with, the women that you're at home, your daughters, your mum, your wife, whoever, that everybody is experiencing the same thing. So let's get rid of the women problems and let's call it what it is.
Yeah,
I like that. Fantastic, Nicola. Thank you. Right then, we're going to do some quick fire, fast-paced answers to questions now. So are we ready?
I think so.
Excellent. So first question, Nicola, I'll come to you first. A myth about women I'm done entertaining is?
That women are too emotional. That's the one thing, isn't it? Women are emotional, and sometimes they're not given chances or not given positions or whatever, because that perception of women being emotional and the connotations from that as well are that it's uncontrollable. That's what we're really saying, isn't it? You know, and that is just a myth. It really is. And actually, what's wrong with a little bit of emotion as well?
Yeah,
a little bit of heart
100%.
goes a long way.
A few tears don't.
It does. A little bit of heart goes a long way, but I think that myth, it's the emotional, but it's the uncontrollable. And anyway, who's trying to control us anyway?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Great answer and quick off the mark. So thank you, Kath. A boundary I'm keeping this year is
protecting my weekends. So trying to protect my weekends and doing things, family, friends, spring cleaning, anything, just out of the norm of not being on my computer.
Your time.
Yes,
Absolutely.
my time. Try my audit.
I love that. Nicola, back to you. A phrase that helps me breathe is?
I can answer this one straight away. Tomorrow is another day.
Yes.
That is my phrase, because some days your cup is filling up, and sometimes it gets up here. And two things you can do. One is a big deep breath.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate the power of a good deep breath,
Absolutely.
or a few good deep breaths.
Yeah. There's industries based on it.
Absolutely. And then tomorrow is another day. And the number of times that I use that, because it really genuinely is. And you know what? Even when you've had a bad day, you go to sleep, you wake up the next, things always look better in the morning, don't they? Or they look different.
Definitely.
Or you can see things with a new perspective. So that phrase to me is tomorrow is another day.
Yeah. I love that. And it's very similar to my phrase actually as well. So mine is everything's always all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
100% true.
So Kath, back to you next. A woman who inspires me is?
So a woman who inspires me is somebody who carries on with not what you're seeing, whatever she's got in the background. So, you know, she carries on regardless, but there could be loads of other things going on in the background that no one else sees. That's the woman who inspires me. And always be kind. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. A great book I'm reading is?
Oh, I'll tell you what I'm reading at the minute, actually. So I went to an event, an Irish event, a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And Dave Fishwick, the Bank of Dave.
Yes.
So he was the keynote speaker, and I won a raffle and won his book.
Oh, wow.
And it's such a good read.
Oh, okay.
It's such an inspiring story of what he did. I mean, the film's on Netflix. I've seen the film, but his book's really, really good. So I'm partway through that at the minute. It's really...
Yeah, Bank of Dave is an inspiration in my eyes, actually, too.
Really good.
Always done. I mean, there's both films. The second film is how he went into sort of conquer America, and he got rid of the high percentage loans, and he actually delivered the papers to
the payday loans.
And he delivered the paper. And somebody was in a restaurant, and he actually delivered the papers to the. I want to meet the Bank of Dave. That's my.
He was definitely. He did this great talk, and then there was a raffle, and there were various prizes, and actually one of them was a VR headset, and I'm thinking, I actually want that book. Is that right? I was going to buy it, and then my name got called out. I'm like, this is fantastic. So I'm reading that book at the minute. So yeah, really good.
Yeah,
book.
I like that. Good win, definitely. Last question then, Kath. Top advice tip that you are following at the moment?
So my top advice tip is trying is to rest before we get exhausted. So I'm trying to preempt me burning out.
Yeah.
So resting off my phone, certain time, and just trying to be more rested and more sleep. Definitely getting more sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important question, actually. So I'm going to throw it back to you as well, Nicola. What's your top advice tip at the moment?
I think for me, it is, I mentioned about breathing earlier, didn't I? And that is something that, you know, I've not got into it. I know there's lots of different things that you can go, I've not been down any rabbit holes, but one thing that does just clear my mind is just those few breaths. And sometimes that's sat at your desk. Sometimes that's taking a walk outside and just getting a little bit of fresh air. The difference it can give you in perspective, you can't be understated. You know, it really is just such a. It clears your mind, doesn't it? It really does clear your mind. And I would say to anybody, just try it. And I think sometimes as well, you know, when you feel really uptight I'm saying you feel really uptight, you perhaps don't know you do until you take that deep breath and just let it out. And then you think, oh, I was tense about something, you know. So just deep breaths and carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And you're right, it's that little reminder sometimes, like, oh, unclench your jaw, yes, push your shoulders back, that kind of thing. Just that reminder of actually looking after yourself.
And that's it. And if anybody's sat watching now, have a think. If you've got your jaw clenched, is your tongue at the roof of your mouth? Drop your shoulders. Because if that's how you were sat watching this, then that's just have a minute, just take a breath.
It is, and it's both for the benefits, absolutely, of mental health, to breathe, get out and about, and to do those things for you. But I think also just it allows your brain to relax, which then can stimulate new ideas and actually prove beneficial later down the line, instead of working flat out to get to the same outcomes.
And I talk about perspectives. I mentioned it earlier, and I think sometimes when you are at your computer screen, you are one-dimensional, and you're in that, like you mentioned, your emails and things like that. You are, the overwhelm is real, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes when you step outside of that, walk away from it, just take a short walk, even if you're on a lunch break or something like that. You will see things from a different perspective, and it puts things in perspective. Yeah. Because that email that was seemingly all-consuming, it's actually not as important then half an hour later as you might have thought, and that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Nicola, thank you. Kath, thank you. Your honesty and time today has been hugely appreciated, and I'm sure those listening at home have found it a really excellent session. I know I have. To every person that's listening out there, we've been listening to some deep topics today, so there are some mental health and wellbeing resources available on the MIMHC website. So if you need support, please do reach out. I'll leave you with the lasting message of be kind to yourself and be kind with others. Take care, and thank you for your time. See you on the next one.